Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those, again, that continue to follow the show and support the show. For almost 11 years, we've been doing radio and now podcasting. And even in this COVID world that we're living in with today, thank goodness we have the technology to do that. So I want to thank those, as I do from time to time, take the opportunity to thank you for following the show, giving us feedback, and giving us some ideas as well. From time to time, we get some great ideas for guests. Remember, for more information, you could always go to reradiolive.com. Before I introduce my guests and we talk about our topic today, just want to remind those that we started the show. The focus is education and information, and this is a great example of the show when we get this started today of that. And that is, what I mean by that is, it's always been my objective, my goal on the show, whether it's myself, my guests, whatever we're doing in content, is to educate and inform the consumer, mostly in and around real estate, but we also do a lot of topics, community topics, giving back segments, nonprofits, a lot of different things. And no different than today, we're going to introduce Jared Hanley. We had him on just a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to be doing this show every couple of weeks, really just in an effort to get this information out and share. It's exciting, new information, the company they started, NatureQuant, and I will invite Jared in to tell you a little more about it. Jared, welcome back.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So tell us first a little bit about, I think it's a great idea to tell us a little bit about your background, again, for those that may not or might be tuning in for the first time or listening to our podcast, Jared, and then about the company. And then I know you also have someone on the line, a doctor on the line that's part of with your company that's going to talk with you about and share some information as well. So yeah, if you could share your background, how you got the company started, let's kick it off that way.
Yeah, great. So my background really largely revolves around data science, which I applied in the world of financial services for, really like the last 30 years or so. But personally, I'd always been fascinated by nature, and I had observed the impacts of nature on my mental health, physical health, and really got quite curious about those impacts because they were so profound for me. And I started, researching the science behind it and found out there's a whole world of information and really 30 years and hundreds, if not thousands of studies highlighting all the evidence around how nature can positively influence your mental and physical well-being. So this wasn't just something that I was kind of observing personally. This is something that has been repeatedly observed, and obviously found that quite fascinating, but also realized that that was something that's not really part of the public mindset. And I felt like it had such a profound positive influence on my life. I would love to share this and maybe make this information more accessible and more kind of part of the public mindset. And so, with that in mind, I thought of the tool sets I had at my disposal, which was, a lot of data science and some computer science. And I thought, well, maybe one way that really we can bring kind of the relevance of nature to the forefront is to allow people to quantify it and start comparing it by region and tracking it over time. And so what we did is we aggregated a bunch of different methods and data sets and kind of algorithms and computer vision to come up with our first product, which is a NatureScore. And what the NatureScore is a calculation of the amount of nature for any given location. So take your home, for example. You can give us your address or any lat long, and we can tell you through our remote sensing data the amount of nature around that location relative to an average. And beyond that, we can also say, based on that amount of nature, here's the health impacts that the science would indicate you might experience. For example, if you're in a very nature-rich environment, we have observed that the more nature around you, and can do things like increase longevity, lower heart disease, lower cancer rates. And so that's kind of the mission of the company, to bring to the public a very convenient tool to help them analyze the amount of nature by location, but also to start utilizing nature as a personal health tool.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's those that are familiar with real estate, similar that you go on to, everybody's familiar with Zillow and Trulia and some others where you could go on and find out what the value of your home is. There's walking scores. There's a number of different things. And as technology evolves, of course, anything in and around real estate, this is certainly a component and a product for, but we're also going to get into some details on how it's related to health and many other facets as well. It's not, real estate is a part of it, Jared, right? I mean, obviously there a lot of people could benefit as a homeowner and using the score, and I know you guys are working on some other programs that are underway, but share with us a little bit about some of the other applications where someone might not necessarily think, wow, I never thought about that, or how this could relate to other facets of your life.
Well, real estate really is where it comes to play, especially now considering that we spend, almost all our time at home. But, beyond that, we spend, 90% plus of our lives inside. And right now, I mean, that's largely, at our office potentially, but even more so where we live. And so being able to start thinking about and quantifying the amount of beneficial nature around where you're spending all your time, which is your home, is a really valuable screening tool or a metric that people can start using for comparison purposes. So we're joined by Dr. Minson. He's one of the co-founders with me, who I think can speak a little bit more about kind of the mechanisms by which nature can bestow benefits.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks for that intro, Jared. Just by way of furthering the introduction, I'll say I'm a professor at the University of Oregon, and I've been here for 20 years. Prior to that, I did training at the Mayo Clinic as a postdoctoral fellow there, and my whole career has been based around human health. So all my research studies are in humans and really focus on the cardiovascular health and some metabolic health. And I've spent a lot of time looking at biomarkers and factors that contribute to disease reduction or possibly how to get better and healthier when someone has diseases. And so Jared and I met really through outdoor adventures and our love of adventures, being outdoors in general. And certainly at some point, Jared started talking about the health benefits of nature, and I jumped on the chance to join this adventure with him for NatureQuant. And the number of aspects by which health can be improved by exposure to nature is huge, right? There in broad categories. There's the way that nature can improve your health, and there's also ways that nature can impact those things that might be negative to your health. So if we take the latter one there first, how certain aspects of exposure to pollutants or sound, we know are very detrimental to people's health, and they oftentimes do that through stress and other inhaling of noxious chemicals that are in the air. And we know that nature plays a huge role in reducing those factors. But there's also a lot of factors within nature that we know are healthy as well. These things are as simple as being able to look out a window and seeing some improved, some greenery and some trees or a view of some water. These things have been shown very clearly to have impacts on people's health, stress reduction and other factors as well. And then, just kind of piggyback on what Jared said, even if we weren't in a COVID situation, people spend the vast majority of their time in probably one of a couple locations, their home and their office. And so being able to quantify nature nearby you and making decisions about this place or that place I want to spend my time in, and knowing what the nature is around you is critical. We do know that, of course, you can go out in nature and get a lot of health benefits, but I think that's extraneous a little bit from what's around you. So you can have huge benefits by just having some kind of scoring or knowing what's around you and helping you make those decisions. And that's where the NatureScore came in. Yeah,
that's a great product, and it's a great idea. And I think it right along the side of whether people, everyone, let's face it, especially our generation, the baby boomers, and then forward, everybody's trying to figure out longevity, how to live longer, feel better. It just is. And where you live and how you live is a big part of that. I know that a lot of the focus over the last several decades have been on diet and exercise and, mental wellness and a lot of things that certainly are important. But to me, would you talk a little bit about, obviously you guys started this company and you had an idea and it's resonating, but to me, this would go right along with that quadrant of those aspects of life, where you spend your time, what kind of environment in which you spend it in is a really important component of this. Wouldn't you think? Wouldn't that be just as important as we evolve here as the other things I mentioned in diet and wellness and exercise and et cetera?
Absolutely. Yeah, Joe, you hit it right on the head. Those things, of course, are important. We all know that exercise is important for health and for a reduction of things such as cardiovascular disease. Diet is a huge part of that as well. But the component that's been, I think, as Jared mentioned, is much less in people's mindset is nature. And nature can mitigate a lot of the problems that we have in the challenges to our health. It's not, of course, nothing's a cure-all, but if you have to pick one, being in nature and being exposed to nearby nature is got to be really at the top of the list. And this because it impacts many different things. Social interactions occur more in nature, of a positive nature. Being able to get out and exercise in parks and places that are healthy with healthy air. The simple fact that you can have more shading from trees around buildings and decrease heat island effects and pollutants that are flying around the air. These are all critically important. And it's something that I think people don't put enough thought into. We think about diet and exercise because we're just hit by every single side of every direction we can think of. We're hit by those reminders. But nature is one that we're not reminded of, and yet it's so critically important.
Nature is also, it's a good marker for the lack of environmental hazards or pollutants nearby. You think about when your house, right? You don't want like asbestos in the tiles or in the ceiling. But you don't think about, well, is there some kind of environmental pollutant near the home I'm buying?
Right.
A refinery or major freeway or some other, environmental pollutant that may, negatively impact your health. And having as nature around your property not only mitigates those pollutants, but it certainly prevents them from existing in the near proximity. So it's also, in some ways, by measuring nature, you're also measuring the lack of additional environmental hazards.
Yeah, good point. For more information, we'll give it out a couple different times here. It's NatureQuant.com. That's NatureQuant.com. Tell us a little bit, either Chris or Jared, walk us through, if you can, the listeners of, as they jump on the site, how they can navigate, what they should look for, maybe some experiences. What would you suggest they do and kind of go through that process or steps as they go to the website? What would they be looking for and what would be informational for them?
Yeah, I'll start. You go to the website, we do have a lot of background on the science. This is an industry that I think historically has been plagued by a lot of kind of, tree, for lack of a better word, tree hugging kind of nebulous associations between feeling good, because I think we all intuitively know being in nature is great. It feels good, you like it, but we wanted to be science first. And so you'll see there's a white paper there and there's kind of references to other research that points to how profound the impacts can be. But beyond that, if you want to take it kind of to a personal level, you can go get your NatureScore, and you can type in the address of your home or your office, and that'll give you a relative amount of nature for a given radius around that location. But we take it one step further. So what we've done is we've looked at how our nature scores correlate with the observed kind of health outcomes of similar locations. And we've done this by correlating it with, data across all the census tracts in the U.S., and we're endeavoring to do it even further down to the individual level. But basically what you can find is you'll get a nature score, but below that you'll also get an indication that people that live in an environment with a nature score similar to yours tend to have these types of health outcomes. So we'll show increase in longevity, reduction in heart disease, reduction in cancer rates, mental distress, a whole list of physical ailments that have been identified as correlating with certain levels of nature within the environment. So it can kind of bring it to a personal level, and you can see, wow, these things are important to me. I want to endeavor and get into an environment with a little more nature because that may bestow benefits to me. And the last thing, to bring it back to real estate, that you'll find on there is and I think we discussed this last time, is nature actually does have an impact on the value of your property. There's a bunch of hedonic pricing studies that show that being near nature or having nice big trees along your city block tend to correlate with higher home prices. And so we've also aggregated some of that data and done some proprietary work to indicate how your NatureScore may influence your home price. So what types of premiums you might see for your home if you happen to have a higher NatureScore or a lower NatureScore.
I'll add on to what Jared said there in that if people are interested in the science behind what we are doing, we have our white paper that's accessible also on the NatureQuant website. And that takes a deeper dive into the science and gives a little bit more about what we're doing and how we do it. And you'll see that by going through that, I think people understand that the NatureScore is not just this score we came up with that's going to be kind of related to someone's health. It really was based on really top-notch scientific papers on literally hundreds of thousands of patients and people, and it relates very directly. So the number is a very good association with the health outcomes for that location.
So we aggregated big data and even a machine learning process to optimize the way we weighted all the elements. So the NatureScore looks at things like, how many trees are around you in the tree canopy, how much live vegetation is there near your home, park space, water space, air pollution. We have satellite infrared measurements that kind of tell us how much photosynthesis is occurring. So there's a whole slew of things that went into our NatureScore that were weighted to provide the best prediction of certain health outcomes, namely longevity, but that it happens to, obviously then dictate cancers and heart disease and the other major ailments that you see.
Right. That's good points. The people that listen to this show are, the general consumer, of course, and we do have a lot of people that follow the show that are in the real estate and lending business, title, et cetera. So there's certainly a component there, but what I want to have you guys do is talk a little bit about the different industries that could benefit from this. And the reason why is, we have listeners, again, 75 to 80% are in the Bay Area, and then we do have a scattering throughout different states and Southern California and even international listeners. But, they may be working for a company or an industry that might hear this and go, gee, this might be something my company, my industry, we didn't think about. So maybe if you guys could take turns and talk a little bit about different industries where you see this being a benefit and maybe integrating in with something that someone may not think of as they're listening to as relates to real estate.
Yeah, Chris, I'll start and then maybe you can add. Well, obviously real estate, I think, is the most obvious. So you could have this as a component of any real estate analysis. You go to a public listing on like a Zillow or Redfin or any kind of MLS kind of data, you're going to get the basics, but we would also like people to consider, the community and the amount of nature within that community as a component of kind of their assessment of where they want to live. So that's one obvious application for real estate. Another is to improve kind of valuation models that, as I mentioned, the environment within where the home is can influence the home price. And, we've seen this with high quality schools or, lack of crime. We think incorporating nature also is an important element of the community in which you're buying a home and should factor into that valuation. So that could be done through automated valuation models or actually just by individuals starting to track the relative home prices using the NatureScore as one kind of covariate or one factor in which they, consider the home price. And I think as the public becomes more and more aware of how important nature is, it's not a luxury, it's actually an essential component. I think it may have a larger and larger influence on home prices. And then obviously like things like city planners, we can grid out a whole city and tell you, here are the areas of your city that are nature deficient. These neighborhoods need more trees or need more parks. So that kind of analysis we can do at scale. And then there's the whole health side. We're actually in talking to a few universities about doing large-scale research using our nature scores to understand even deeper, what specific elements of nature seem to be most beneficial. And then obviously leveraging that to improve public health.
Yeah, and I was going to follow up with that, and I think as a resident kind of scientist here in NatureQuant, I think the relationship that Jared mentioned between NatureQuant and our tools that people can use, and the academic component is huge, because that's what really sets policy for public policy and a lot of other things is the data and outcomes. And so I think there are probably many different opportunities in various business landscapes that we haven't even touched on here, really, that might be able to benefit from that. But I think at the end of the day, for me, certainly, it starts from, there has to be a really solid foundation of science based on this. And it's more than just saying, well, we know nature's good and healthy for you, therefore live closer to it. But it gets very much more difficult than that. So some of the groups we're working with and the work that they're doing already has to do with, if you're going to have a new corporation built somewhere, how and you want people to live within certain distances, how can you maximize the benefit for that? And that might have many impacts on health outcome of people working in your companies. Insurances insurance industry may be interested in that as well. So there are a lot of different parts of it. And again, for me, it comes back to that academic and research component that is the foundation of and how it relates to health. That's the foundation of what we do.
Yeah, from the corporate side, there are some interesting. We haven't, frankly, approached that industry yet, but there is some relevance here. I mean, you may see on some of the big tech campuses, for example, Amazon has their nature spheres, and a lot of the campuses are building small park spaces within kind of the work environment because it's shown to improve productivity. Having a small place to escape, unwind, relax, and kind of reset your focus ultimately is more productive for those corporations. I mean, just to give you kind of a fun little study, there was research done where they basically mandated that every employee have a screensaver that's an image of nature. And they observed how that impacted the productivity of the workplace. And it turns out something as simple as creating, screensavers with images of nature increased productivity, reduced, sick time leave, and also improved reported, happiness in the workplace. So there are ways you can lever nature in many, many different industries. Frankly, we haven't even thought of them all yet, but we're excited about the opportunities.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. We have just a few more minutes left. And again, it's for those that want to go on the website, it's NatureQuant.com. That's NatureQuant.com. And then they could, obviously, if they have questions for you, Jared, or Chris, or anyone else as it relates to the site or the model, they could contact you through the website.
Yes, there is a contact form there, and I think an email address as well.
Okay. What other, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Maybe things you're working on? I know that the NatureScore is one. You guys have other things in the works and the plans, but are you going to be spending most of your time and energy really trying to get that out, so to speak, and have that be a brand or a trademark for you guys so you could, maybe leapfrog from other components of that?
Yes, we are obviously working full speed on the NatureScore. We're excited about bringing that out to the public. There's a lot of other kind of environmental factors we're considering. Actually, just last week, we were trying to figure out, can we determine the tap water quality for each house, within the U.S. and provide that as a piece of data, right? So there's all these other environmental factors that can have an impact on our health that just aren't readily available to the consumer, and we think they should be. And so, our goal is to, A, increase awareness around those factors, but B, provide a kind of a convenient way to access them so we can make educated decisions about our environment, where we live, what communities need more services, et cetera.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking of, and this could be a funny, goofy question, but I'll ask him because I do it all the time. What is there a determination also when you talk about NatureScore? Like, can you determine maybe to the extent that a certain type of tree is better than other certain trees, or shrubs, or landscaping, or does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yes, Joe, you're absolutely making sense. Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. And those elements are actually built into our NatureScore.
Okay, great.
And so when you get that NatureScore, you're having that built in there already, which is a nice application of it. The science isn't 100% strong, saying like, a conifer is better than a deciduous tree on a Saturday in June. But there is some very good science that's developing and getting stronger in that way. But as much as the data is out there and available, we have that built into the NatureScore, which is a nice element, so people have to go and look for that separately.
Yeah. The other question I had is that, for an example, if you're doing a NatureScore, if you're looking at an environment like the mountains of Tahoe and some beautiful areas maybe that are very mountainous and trees all over the place and lakes and streams and maybe not even heavily populated. Versus then if you take a snapshot of a place like Arizona that may not have a ton of trees, but they have cactus and they have, how would those kind of shape up as it relates to NatureScore?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's actually something we struggled with for quite a long time. These different elements of nature and which are most important and should get the biggest weighting. Ultimately, we kind of let the machine learning process dictate how we weighted certain elements of nature. And so, as I mentioned, what we did is we built this, aggregation of data sets and weighted them differently through a machine learning process to provide the most predictive health tool, if you will. Okay. And so if, for example, if it turns out being around, a dense forest imparts more health benefit than being, near a desert, that's going to get a slightly better NatureScore. And so that's really how it worked out. I would say all elements of nature, are going to increase the score more than built environment items. If you're next to a sandy beach, which is really just rock, right? There's not a lot of live vegetation there. You are going to get more benefit in your score than being next to a parking lot. Yeah. But, sand turns out doesn't provide as much health benefit as, a forest does, for example. And so you'll see different weightings based on the type of nature environment you're in.
Very good. Makes sense. Anything you guys want to add before we cut out today? I'll give the website out again. It's NatureQuant.com. That's NatureQuant.com. I would encourage you to go onto the website. And again, if you go onto the website or if you listen to this podcast and if you're in an industry you think that could benefit, just go on the website and contact, either Jared or his partners and find out, ask questions. That's what they're there for. Anything else you guys want to wrap up with before we close it out today?
No, I think I'll just say the same thing as last time is, if you haven't tried, just exposing yourself to nature in as little as 10 minutes, your blood pressure is going to go down, your heart rate is going to decrease. They've shown that your cortisol levels, which is a measurement of stress, go down in as little as 10 minutes. So just go walk outside or go to a park and see if you like it.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Chris, anything you'd like to add before we finish up today?
No, I think that summed it up really well. I will, one small thing I'll add is, a lot of the data says that people should be looking for getting a cumulative of 2 hours of exposure to nature per week. And that's people who don't really live near nature. So while that's a very important number, and I think there's so many health benefits to do that, by living in a place and commuting through places that are much more green and have much higher nature scores, people are going to have definite health benefits, as Jared has mentioned.
I just had an image that I wanted to share before I leave too, before we kind of cut it. So a person's getting out in nature and trying to really calm down and relax and soak it in, but yet they got their phone, have their phone. Right. I'm not guessing it tracks that, but I'm laughing because I'm thinking about jumping on the trail and trying to enjoy the nature. But I think at a certain point we got to probably put the phone away and really enjoy it and soak it in as much as we can.
You're 100% correct. And there are also people who, if you take their phone away, I have a 18-year-old daughter, and I can tell you if I take her phone away from her, she's stressed no matter where we are. So.
Well,
we're fully aware of the irony that we're providing technology to get away from technology. So.
Right.
Yes, very much.
All right. Well, guys, thanks. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks for an update, and always good catching up with you, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks again for tuning in today. For more information, you can go to reradiolive.com. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.